What's going on, guys? My name is El De Niro, and welcome to episode 112 of the Midnight Hour. This episode is going to feature friends, long-time collaborators, and recurring guests from the Weird With You podcast, Santiago and Justine. You guys know a lot about that podcast. I talk about it a lot. It will be linked in the description as well as their Facebook pages, Twitter pages, stuff like that. Something else that will be worth knowing for you guys, I'm going to be on that podcast next week. So if you guys go and follow them on SoundCloud or Stitcher or iTunes or whatever, like type Weird With You into whatever podcast app and subscribe to it, you'll hear me feature in one of their episodes next week, and it's gonna be a really good one. So I'd recommend doing that, especially for the people who feel like there is a hole in their life, the shape of the Midnight Hour. Although surprisingly enough, and people will not really believe this, I have only missed 2 weeks of Midnight Hour uploading this year. So 2018 has been good for those of you who like the podcast. I just want to say, before we get into the episode, which is about mythology, it's a really funny episode. I'm really happy with it. I just want to say like a huge thanks to everybody for reaching out and all the kind messages that I got after uploading episode 110. I'm sure like a lot of people grasped that it was a serious episode, and even people who'd never had any mental health issues reached out to say that it was a really interesting thing to hear, and it was like illuminating in different ways, and that's really cool. So just thanks for that. It was sort of filled me with nostalgia for the days when I would upload a Call of Duty video about a particular topic, and lots of people would reach out with their stories and their take on it and things like that. It was pretty cool. So the last couple of weeks have been like pretty great in that regard. And for all the people who are like messaging me saying hope you're doing okay and stuff, like, you don't need to worry. I am pretty much on top of things. I'm currently a little bit under the weather. I'm sure that you'll hear that in my voice. It's actually really hard for me to talk like for a long time straight. What else was I going to say? There's some huge thing going on in my personal life that I can't talk about for bullshit legal reasons, but when it's all done, I'm really looking forward to fucking venting about it, because this has been one of the most like frustrating times in my life, and that's another reason why I'm just so thankful that I put so much time and effort and money into bettering myself and improving the quality of my mood last year, because I don't think that this would be an incredibly difficult time if that weren't the case, and I'm really sorry that I can't talk about it. It's such bullshit, but don't worry, it'll all be over at some point and I'll be able to talk. I might actually do a specific Midnight Hour episode about my life for the last 6 months, because I think that there's actually quite a story there. And another cool thing came out of that episode 110, which is that I realized I can do a Midnight Hour episode by myself, because that's the only time that I've ever done that, and that's pretty cool. That's something that I would really like to do in future, because it's really hard to arrange guests for this podcast. You guys obviously know that, because you're always asking for people that I just can't get on because of time schedules and stuff like that. And I think what I've done with the show in response to that problem has been really good. Like, I've really enjoyed the conversations that I've had with the new guests that have come on and things like that. It's great. Like, I've built up new relationships and new contacts and stuff, and that's cool too. So along that vein, if you guys have any suggestions for people that you'd like to have on the Midnight Hour, please do let me know. I'm certainly all ears, and look forward to hearing from you. So this episode is about mythology. It's a very funny episode. I think I'm really pleased with it. The song opening is just a generic, like, free. It's not actually generic. The track that opens the show is awesome. I'm going to link it in the description. It's only got like 400 views on YouTube. I just found it randomly when I was looking for free chillwave songs, because I'm really into chillwave. So yeah, I'll leave that there, and you guys can go and check that out, and that'll be pretty cool. So I feel like there might have been something else that I wanted to say, but No, I don't think I can remember what it was. All right. Enjoy.
Power in the verse can stop me.
Alright, I'm joined today by blah 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 and so from the Weird With You podcast. No, just kidding. I'm joined today by Santiago and Justine from the Weird With You podcast. Hi guys, welcome back to the Midnight Hour.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes.
Thanks for having us.
We have returned.
That is the enthusiasm.
The Iceman cometh!
Exactly.
Just one person?
Yeah, together we take form of Iceman.
That's like a really good setup for a mythological being. It's like a man and a woman, and when they combine they become one man, but this man is made of ice for some reason, and it's...
Maybe not a man. What about, like, Ice Thing?
Yeah, I don't feel like there are enough things in the... Like, the Cloverfield monster is probably a man.
Or if we want to be politically correct, Ice They.
Ice They. I just made an absolutely huge blunder, and I picked the one fucking monster from pop culture that is actually female. The Cloverfield monster literally gives birth like multiple times in the first Cloverfield movie. So there you go. I am an absolute idiot. So
if that film had been shot from a different perspective, like it would have just been like this horrible story of like this alien falls from the sky into the ocean, and she's pregnant, and her baby daddy isn't there, and she has to have these babies, so she's just looking for a hospital, but all the hospitals are too small, and she keeps stepping on them, and then she just has like the world's worst labor, while like people are running and screaming, the military starts shooting at her. She's just giving birth, man.
Yes, my thoughts exactly. That was the first thing I thought after I saw that movie, was like, damn, this is a distressing movie for aliens just trying to give birth. Have you seen the Cloverfield Paradox? Did I ask you this already?
No, haven't seen it.
Wow. Well,
I almost got caught up in the hype of like I don't even watch the Super Bowl, and I saw the Super Bowl trailer, and I was like, oh man, I can watch that right now, and then I didn't. And then the reviews started coming out, and I was like, well, maybe I'll watch it later.
I watched it the very next night, and it is not that bad.
I heard that it's not terrible, but I think people just got caught in the hype of the moment.
It's better than Event Horizon, I'll say that much.
Ooh.
And it's kind of the same as Event Horizon, I'll also say that much. But I think Event Horizon gets way more credit than it deserves, and I have no idea why. So that's a weird thing. Do you think those types of movies will be what future societies look at as like mythology that's like modern to us, but will be myths to them?
Just like felt like they take the film literally.
Yeah. Well,
the sagas of Hollywood.
Do you think Darth Vader will exist in like 600 years?
Hard to say.
Yeah.
Hard to say. I mean, he would exist, but he'd be severely warped, right? Because by that time, all of the people who are loyal to the original trilogy and don't acknowledge the prequels will have died multiple times over. So they will their understanding of Darth Vader will be he came from Hayden Christensen and that kid from Jingle All the Way. And that will mar some of Darth Vader's badassery.
I don't know, he killed a lot of kids in the Revenge of the Jedi, or whatever that movie's called, Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah. he killed younglings.
Younglings, yeah, that's correct. Of course, they're not real children.
Have I mentioned how much I hate that word?
I think we spoke about it in one of the 3 Star Wars podcasts that we've done.
You killed younglings, Anakin! You're breaking my heart! Ugh, the dialogue.
I never liked sand. No, I hate sand.
Of course, gets everywhere.
It gets everywhere. Good God. Yeah. So anyway, to the listeners, you guys may remember that I was on the Weird With You podcast a few months ago, and we did an episode about mythology, and it was really fun, and we're gonna sort of revisit that. Yeah, it was, and I got lots of tweets after, or maybe not all tweets, but like messages and comments and stuff saying that you should talk about mythology on the Midnight Hour, and I'm like, hell yeah, and 8 months later, here I am. I'm a man of my word. So today we're going to talk mythology. This is sort of a part 2 in our cross podcast series at this point. Sort of like the Cloverfield series in that it jumps from genre to genre, different movie directors, and it's, high production and big budget and all of that stuff. So
we haven't been bought out by Netflix yet, though.
No, but if they come crawling, I'm selling this podcast. I don't care. I will sell for like anything in the realm of like $20 million, which is what I value the podcast at. I would totally sell to Netflix.
And we'll sell at anything that covers the cost of the podcast, which wasn't that much to begin with.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, sure. Can we stay on? Maybe? Okay.
I once
I'll do it. It's too much.
I once had a guy come to me about my YouTube channel, and he offered me 500 euros to buy it from me, and I was like, yeah, no. I mean, it has earned like considerably more than that in its existence. It would really take a lot more money. But anyway, yeah, we're gonna go with mythology because it's damn interesting. And Santiago, you had this like monologue at the end of the Weird With You episode where you talked about mythology and how there's sort of a gap in the world for mythology at the moment because we know everything about the world, like in Google Earth shows us everything, and there are no hidden corners and there's no wonder left in the world. And it sounded a lot less sad than how I've just painted it, but it was really good and it really resonated with me. So I would encourage listeners who haven't heard that episode to go and check it out. It'll be linked in the description. So who wants to go first with their mythological being for this episode?
I'll go first. And actually, just playing off what... hi, it's Santiago here from the Weird With You podcast. How's it going? At weird_with you, Twitter. Not a big deal.
All of that stuff, I have already said it all in the intro, so don't you worry.
Facebook.com/weirdwithyou. No, tied to what you were just saying, I think one of the few places where there is still room for mythology is the sea, because the ocean, right? We don't know a lot about that space. So fittingly, this first myth has absolutely nothing to do with that. So I'm going to butcher the name of this, but Elle, have you ever heard of the Mari Lwyd?
Sounds like an Italian man who just can't pronounce the last couple of vowels in his name. You mean Mari Luigi, the guy that owns the pizza place?
Mari and Lwyd.
Yeah, very familiar with that guy. Uses way too much tomato sauce, but I like the stone baked base, and yeah, it's cool with me. Bit overpriced.
It's like the terrible knockoff from Mario and Luigi.
Yeah.
Super Mari World.
Yeah.
Super Mari Land.
The German supermarket version of that, yeah.
They're electricians.
Yeah.
There's somebody listening to this going, no, that's a genius idea. You're going to open the restaurant, and then we're not going to get any credit for it.
Mari and Lwyd, they're just Welsh electricians. So, Mari Lwyd is something that comes from South Wales. It's a festive, skeletal horse spirit with a penchant for rhymes, which, makes sense.
Is it a SoundCloud rapper? Is that what you're describing?
Yeah, it's much like Deadmau5. Or
DJ Horse Poet?
DJ Horse Poet. Oh man. So this is from I found this on Atlas Obscura. Actually, my sister sent this to me a while ago. I thought it was too funny. In the simplest terms, the Mari Lwyd custom involves a group of revelers carrying a horse skull door to door and demanding entry through song. The focus is on the Mari Lwyd itself, a jaw-articulated equine skull decorated with ribbons, ornaments, and festive bits and bobs, plus a sheet draped over a person carrying it, giving the whole thing a ghostly appearance. So, in the simplest terms, it's a horse skull puppet costume with an articulated jaw. You know, that Martha Stewart put some glitter on, some bits and bobs, bedazzled it a little bit, put ribbons for hair, and then you throw a sheet over the person that has the horse skull on their head, and they go from door to door and move the jaw, and the horse skull talks to the people at the door.
Sounds like Halloween.
Yeah, sounds very trick-or-treatery.
Right. Mari Lwyd caroling generally takes place around Christmas and New Year.
Of course.
That's when Halloween happens, right?
Yeah, in Wales, yeah.
In Wales.
They get everything just slightly wrong over there. I don't know what their deal is.
What's your Welsh listenership like?
After this, probably not very high.
So yeah, sometimes it also happens in Midsummer or Halloween. So it's just something that I just feel like this is something that can happen at any time, you know? Like, at any point in time, somebody just finds a horse skull, or like a horse dies, like a prominent horse, and they're like, no, we should do...
Bust out the old Mari Lwyd.
Mari Lwyd.
It's just classic Mari Lwyd. Just classic horse skull based fun. Anyone from a Celtic Isle will certainly understand what it means to have just some horse skull based fun.
You know what Wales has in surplus? Just horse skulls. Little known fact, Wales is the dumping ground for the world's horse skulls. Because, like, what are you going to do with the horse skull? You got, and then Wales, the industrious Welsh, they are the world's greatest recyclers when it comes to horse skulls. Because what are you going to do? And they're like, we're going to make a puppet that annoys people. And loves rhymes.
It's because the International Recycling Commission was asked the question, hey, what are we going to do with all these horse skulls that have just randomly appeared? And the guy was like, we're going to send them to the Isle of Horse. And they were like, there is no Isle of Horse. All right then, Horse Island. There's no Horse Island. Okay, what's the nearest country that sounds like an animal? Wales. It'll do. Let's send them all to Wales.
Whales are often called the horses of the sea. Isn't that seahorses?
Yeah, that's right, yeah. The horse
Pretty
of the
sure
sea.
it's Wales.
Yeah.
Yeah. So traditionally, when arriving at a house, the Mari Lwyd troupe will sing out a challenge to the people inside. So they knock on the door. They're already harassing you.
Yeah.
And then they start to challenge you. And then they perform a sort of call and response called there's some missing consonants here, or vowels.
That's
rather.
Welsh.
Both.
Let me guess how it's spelled, right, without knowing anything about this.
I'm going to say it and tell me how it's spelled, okay?
It's probably spelled like the acronym for your podcast, just WWY, lots of W's and Y's
pretty
everywhere.
Close.
Yeah.
It sounds like some sort of, steel company.
Yeah.
It's called a Punko? Punko? Punko. How do you think that's spelled?
PWYYNCO, probably.
You were outrageously close.
Yeah, I had
Just
to study
get rid of the Ys.
For my Irish exams in it's called the Leaving Certificate in Ireland. I had to study a tiny bit of Welsh, and it wasn't like an oral exam. I just had to write it down, and literally I basically revise. What's the word when you learn something off by heart?
Memorize.
Yeah, but when you spit that out, you're reciting it from memory. Yeah. So I recited it from memory, and it was about 16 words, and all of them were just Y's and W's everywhere. And
do the Welsh just speak in acronyms?
It does look that way. Like, it's weird because there's a lot of crossover between Irish Gaelic and Scots Gaelic, but Welsh.
It's PWNCO. So what is that, like? Pony World National Conference
Organization.
Yeah,
that's
there
it.
You go.
I've heard of that before. Those are the guys that put the skulls in Wales.
Those bastards. Anyone inside the house is then tasked with replying in a rhyme scheme, even wittier than the creatures. So you have to out-rhyme the creature. It's kind of like a rap battle, but with a man dressed in a blanket with a horse skull.
This is the most obnoxious and annoying house visit of all time. Like,
it gets worse.
Oh.
Are you allowed to turn it down?
It doesn't say.
Like, what are the
Welsh
rules
listeners.
for this?
Welsh listeners. I know you're probably mad at us. But please let us know what we're missing from this. We're just going, it's Atlas Obscura, man. We're just going off what they're saying.
I bet there's a bunch of Welsh people like, listen to these fucking idiots. They don't know anything about Mari Lwyd. They don't even get why someone would do this.
So pretty much, they're tasked with replying with a response that's wittier than the creatures. And after the rhyme battle, the Mari Lwyd is allowed inside, where the players are given food and drink before heading out to darken someone else's doorstep. So that is the Mari Lwyd, an ancient Welsh Christmas custom, or late summer, or Halloween.
Whatever you feel like.
Pretty much whenever you got a spare horse skull.
So how many people do this at one time, do you think? Like, is it like groups of people and you're getting multiples of them at your door, like challenging you? Or is it just like one?
Well, you gotta have someone guiding the Mari Lwyd around because they're wearing a horse skull on there. They can't see, right? They're just a man with a blanket on. So there is a depiction, an artist's rendering, if you will. And it has one Mari Lwyd, and then you can see 6 carolers with them.
I just as an aside, the term "darken someone's door" is awesome. I know I've heard it before, and I always hear it, and I'm like, it's so poetic. Like, you darken their door, like your shadow just looms over it as you walk towards it. It's great. And that is exactly what I would think of someone who knocks on my door and issues a fucking challenge in rhyme. Like, you can get the fuck out of here. If someone like knocked on my door and was like, I'm trying to think of what would be a challenge that even rhymes. Like, hey man, no, I can't do it. But
I've got one here.
Yeah, go ahead.
I've got one here.
Whoa.
Os ois nya dinion.
Yeah, I've already closed the door by this point.
Albletu en ginion. And then the reply, it's longer than that, so it's not going to rhyme. But the reply goes, me ima wie feirdion sin medru en glinion. Oh, that part did rhyme. Hey, there you go. I may not understand it, but it rhymed.
Yeah. I mean, that is certainly cutting rhymes right there.
Some sick lyrics.
Yeah, some record deals were handed out off the back of this Mari Lwyd, for sure. This is... it's interesting that a lot of the sort of mythological stories or traditions based around the Celts, they all got replaced by Christian traditions, but like not a whole lot changed about them. For like St. Patrick, there used to be an original St. Patrick's Day called something else, and it was replaced by St. Patrick's Day because St. Patrick was a Christian. And the same thing happened like Christmas. There was always some winter celebration, and then that became Christmas because that's
the solstice, Yuletide, like all of that good stuff.
Yeah, so
I love that kind of like, and we talked about this before in the Christmas episode that we did with you, but it is that like, oh, see, we do that thing too. We just call it Christmas, and we put the tree right side up instead of upside down. But there's still a tree.
We put the tree right side up. instead of burning a gigantic horse.
Yeah. Exactly. So, like, I like to think that, you know, the Christians were going around trying to convince, and this is obviously like a much more deathless and PG version of what actually happened.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I once did an episode about fairy tales, and we learned that a lot of the original fairy tales, like Snow White and Goldilocks, like there's a lot more rape and a lot more necrophilia, and you know, various other forms of just horrible things. So yeah.
But I like to picture them going around from country to country and just being like, what's your tradition? Well, we do the same thing too. You know, and like, what's your tradition? Oh, we have this guy and he did something with snakes. And they're like, oh, we have a guy who did something with snakes and his name was St. Patrick. So it's the same guy. We just call him that. You can call him that too. And we won't kill you. And then they went to the Welsh and they were like, what have you got? And they're like, we got a horse skull on a stick, and he rhymes a lot. And they were like, you just keep doing that, Wales.
You got nothing. Nothing comparable.
Do you have any indication as to when they stopped doing this, or are they still working away trying to?
Oh no, this is still happening.
Oh, good Jesus!
Yeah.
Wow.
We got pictures
from like recent times of people doing
this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Holy Christ!
Here, you'll keep talking. I'm gonna send you one over Skype.
There are gonna be some comments from Welsh people, I'm sure. I definitely do have, like, the majority of my listeners come from the UK, so there's got to be some Welsh people laced in amongst them, and I bet we're gonna get comments like, "There's no way that's actually what it is. It's actually this." I've noticed that whenever I hear people talk about things that we do in Ireland, like, I'm always like, "Nah, that's not right. Come on now."
I do want to stress that while I know that I'm mispronouncing things grossly.
Yeah. That's fine. Well, I remember
I didn't have time to get the correct pronunciation.
When, like, Beyonce and Jay-Z came to Ireland one time, and they were seen, like, around Dublin and stuff, and TMZ, have you ever seen that thing that TMZ do where it's a bunch of their fucking idiot reporters sitting around in their office talking, and they were all just like, yeah, they were in Ireland. There are people in Ireland who don't even know who Jay-Z and Beyonce are. They were just walking around and, like, no one even knew who they were. And I was like, when you picture Ireland, the only thing that you think of is, like, horses and carts and Braveheart, which is not even Irish, obviously, but that's probably the way their brains work. And yeah, I got very annoyed listening to holy Jesus, I've just seen the picture. That is freaky
kind of awesome.
As hell. And you can tell it's modern because someone in the background has headphones around their neck.
Oh yeah.
Or something around their neck. This is so weird. You know those things of horses' heads that people put on there, like the mask, the horse head mask that is huge on the internet? You know the thing I'm talking about? Well, that's what this looks like, except more dead.
At least that one looks more like
a
live horse. The one that I'm about to send you is much worse.
Oh dear.
It looks more like if Mother Teresa was a horse skull.
It's a little hunchy.
Oh
more
my.
than a little.
Let's see.
It looks more like some kind of weird dinosaur or something.
It's great for the audio listeners.
Oh my god. Yeah. This is like a hunched over nun, except instead of a nun's head, it's a dead horse's skull, and instead of eyeballs, it's got Christmas decorations. So
it has kind eyes.
Yeah.
It does.
It looks so happy.
It does look. I'm gonna do everything I can to put that on the screen right now for the YouTube video. When I say everything I can, I mean I will try to remember to do that because I probably won't. I'm terrible at that kind of thing. So that's amazing. I don't know if I respect the Welsh more as a result of that, or if I think that they're even more crazy than I already thought they were.
Oh, I do, dude. Like, all joking aside, And this is where we win back some of the Welsh fan base.
If they haven't stopped
It's gonna
listening.
take a while.
If they haven't stopped listening, well, I won't have it. Taking our Mari Lwyd and making it into this joke. Where the horse skull. No, this is where we bring them back. All joking aside, like, I wish we had shit like this in Canada.
Yeah, we don't really have a lot going on.
We don't have anything to do with our horse skulls.
Just put them in
Lying
graves.
around people's basements.
I know.
Gathering dust.
Gathering dust, like, 6 horse skulls we've just got laying around. And that's just Justine's house.
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean, like, in all seriousness, though, I do wish we had stuff like this, because it's this kind of, like, quirky tradition that I would like, the thing is that if I was, I mean, like, I don't know, but I'm just saying, if I was Welsh, like, this is the kind of thing that I would want to participate in and not die, because it's funny, and it's fun, and it's ridiculous, and, like, why not do this? Like, honestly, all we have here is like Santa Claus on Coke cans, and like it's dumb, it's lame. Like, put a horse skull, turn it into a puppet, and go, walking around from house to house and demand entry through like an epic rhyme battle.
Took the traditions that already existed.
Except for the cool ones, obviously.
Well, yeah,
like, I actually, like, I'm not joking when I say I think this is really fun. Like, I think this is, like, a nice thing to do with your family.
I would rather have that come to my door than the people who keep coming and trying to sell you a new furnace. Like, we get that a lot here.
Yeah, and the Jehovah's Witness, but that's a... If the Jehovah's Witness came and they were using an articulated horse puppet, I would at least hear them out, instead of slamming the door on them.
It's you think though you're just naturally programmed to feel like that about other cultures, because like there's a lot of things that Ireland does that I'm like, this is stupid, or there's a lot of things that I feel like a disproportionate amount of shame over when it's nothing to even do with me. And then, I don't know, you guys live in Canada. I look at pictures of Canada more than I look at pictures of any other country. Like, sometimes I just sit down and I'm like, alright, what does the mountainside of Banff look like today? And then I Google it and I look at it and I'm like, yep, that's the good stuff. And, like, I follow, like, 4 different, like, Canadian adventurers on Instagram just so that I can look at their amazing pictures of Canada. But, like, I live in a country that's famous for its beautiful countryside and its amazing, scenery and all of that stuff, but it just doesn't look as compelling to me as a picture of like a huge field in the Canadian prairies with a magical tractor that somehow is different to an Irish tractor, of which I have seen hundreds and thousands in my life. So it's weird. I feel like you get sick of the stuff that you're used to seeing,
It's weird here too, because the thing is, North American culture, there's kind of 2 avenues of getting weird stuff like this in Canada. And one is that it was brought over by people who came from Europe. And the other is that it was already here and it's part of indigenous culture. And that's where you fall into the kind of like, well, like what do you do in that situation? Because like there is stuff that's interesting and fun and strange. I mean, strange just because it's different. I'm sure if you grew up with the Mari Lwyd, like, it's not weird to you. But what do you do when it belongs to like an indigenous tradition that like has nothing to do with you? And then you're just kind of, if you start doing something with that, or if you start turning that into like quote unquote Canadian culture or whatever, then you're just appropriating it. Yeah. And so like I think it's a lot weirder in North America to come by those old, it's more difficult to come by those old traditions in a way that isn't like shitty, because the truth is that like, there's indigenous people all over the world. Like Europe was full of indigenous people that the Romans came and massacred and then, had children with and crossbred with, and then it all turned into, what we know as Europe. And that happened with multiple, not just the Romans, but multiple cultures. And so like the indigenous communities of Europe have been so decimated through conquering and mixing and all of that there are very few remaining indigenous communities outside of places like in Russia, there's indigenous communities, for example, or like
Yeah.
the Roma say that they have roots in indigenous cultures. But we don't think about like Europe having indigenous cultures, but like that's what, you know, when you go far back enough, like what are the Celts? You know, like do they qualify as an indigenous group?
I would say, well, what does the word indigenous mean other than just native to?
Yeah.
That's what it means.
Well, like the people from that, yeah, the people originally from that. I mean, no one's originally from anywhere, but
Yeah, well, the Celts, the Irish Celts, probably came across the Giant's Causeway or some bridge between Stranraer in Scotland and County Antrim in the north of Ireland, and they settled in a place called Mount Sandal in, I don't know, like, I don't actually know the year. I know they built like Portal Dolmens and all this stuff, but they were the first people to come here and the first people to populate this land. And the British tried very, very hard to come over here and take Ireland, but they weren't able to do it. The Romans came here once and walked around and were like, "It's fucking freezing, lads. Let's go home." And they did, and they called Ireland Hibernia, which means the land of winter. And yeah, other than that, like nothing else has happened. I saw this thing on Facebook on St. Patrick's Day. It was this black guy in America, and he was saying like, "Oh, black folks shouldn't celebrate St. Patrick's Day because St. Patrick drove the snakes out of Ireland." But what were the snakes? The snakes were this group of Africans who were over in Ireland, and the Irish thought that they were practicing witchcraft, so they drove them out of the country. And all the comments were like, "Oh yeah, it's all, you're so woke and everything." And like that didn't fucking happen. I can tell you there was no tribe of African people in Ireland while we were battling the English out of the country. So that's really weird. I don't know why I went into that. Just I saw that like recently, and it absolutely blew my mind that someone could think that that was true. But yeah, to answer your question, the Irish are indeed, I think the Celts are indeed indigenous to Ireland.
yeah. Well, and see, that's the thing, is that like all of the weird traditions that people kind of celebrate here that they're all from Europe. You know, they come from a European place, like often Catholic or Christian or Protestant, or
Yeah.
you know. And then there are also traditions. Well, it's just like the premise of American Gods, Neil Gaiman. So it's another opportunity to talk about that book.
Yeah, you mentioned that in the other one that we did, right?
Yeah, I know, because it's just so good, and the show was out, so you know.
Oh yeah, that's the one that's on the Amazon.
On the Amazon, yes.
I know that because that's the exact reason why I haven't watched it. Because it's on Amazon and I already have Netflix and Sky. I can't do all of these things at once. The world expects way too much of me.
Right. But yeah, that's the idea, is that like they come from Europe and stuff. So it's a little bit harder to come by good ones here. That are like those more niche, I guess. Like it feels weird talking about people's traditions in this way, and like obviously like we're doing this in good humor, and we respect other people's cultures and beliefs and stuff. But we also see an opportunity to have some fun with it and learn stuff, because like, did you know that this thing existed? I didn't, but now I know something about it.
Absolutely,
and I'd like to know more about it.
Yeah.
So, you know, like, take this as an opportunity. But anyway, so that is the Mari Lwyd.
That's certainly illuminating. I have lots of questions for my Welsh friends.
There you go.
So, do you want to go next, Justine?
I guess so. So, you know, we were saying how there aren't any more myths in the world anymore because we know a lot about everything, sort of. But there were some that came just from, I guess, just being a dick. It's obviously just designed to scare people or just to be funny. So you've probably heard of it. It's the drop bear from Australia, which I honestly thought was a real thing for a very long time, and I was terrified of it happening to me if I went there.
I don't think I've heard of this.
It's this like carnivorous koala bear that falls from, I guess, like, the trees if you're walking around and, like, purposely attacks people like it's vicious.
Wow.
Rather than being docile and high on, what was it, eucalyptus?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now we know they just have chlamydia. That would make anyone angry and carnivorous.
That's right. Every koala bear has chlamydia.
Really?
Yeah.
Most. They're walking STD
Explains
bears.
so...
Yeah. Someone has been very busy. That's
So
all.
they're self-medicating.
Yeah. Wow.
I think we can just end that conversation.
I don't think we need to expand on that anymore.
That's the scariest non-myth of all. Fun fact. But yeah, so this drop bear, it's called a drop bear because it drops on people, was created by Australians mostly to just scare tourists. And they kind of make it sound like it preys on tourists because the only way to stop it from, I guess, attacking you is by
Buying local.
Well, actually, there's something to that. So one of the things is involves putting forks in your hair.
Oh, Jesus.
To deter it. Like, you imagine. And having Vegemite or toothpaste spread behind your ears or on your armpits. So, I mean, buying local.
There you go. They're local forks. Locally sourced.
Yeah.
The Australians are...
It was just to troll people, obviously.
There's nothing organic or locally sourced about Vegemite. It's made out of black tar and sin.
Is that Marmite? Is that the same thing?
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. I can look it up.
I've had Marmite. You know what? Marmite gets a bad rap, just in moderation.
Yeah, for good reason, in my opinion. I don't know. I don't really like lots of food. I'm very, very fussy. So if people come to me and they're like, "Hey, do you want this black tar-looking shit on your bread?" I'm like, "No, I don't think I do." So that's where I draw the line. So the drop bear.
Would you like this tin of petrified whale penis?
When did the drop bear start, or is there any information on that?
It doesn't really specify, other than it was obviously just like a hoax.
Yeah.
Designed to scare outsiders and tourists. And it's just a joke that they perpetuate.
The Australians have, like, probably the most visceral sense of humor in the world. They're, like, incredibly upfront about how, like, I don't know, it's really strange. Like, if you ever want to laugh, the Australians are definitely the people to go to. I don't think they get enough credit worldwide for having that.
Australia and New Zealand takes the dry humor to a whole different level.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a lot of fun. And I think it's something about the culture also, but it's very quippy. The humor is very fast. And it's a lot of... I've noticed anyway that it's a lot of... I don't know if sarcasm's the right word, but there is a lot of kind of goading people and egging people on and kind of getting responses back and forth, like quick little quips back and forth. I don't know. I find it endlessly funny. Well, my sister's best friend's husband is Kiwi, and he is one of the funniest, like, just naturally funny.
Yeah.
And it's not like, oh, ha, 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 the accent's funny. Like, no, like, genuinely funny, witty people. And I think it has something to do with the culture, right?
Yeah, because I've even noticed it with a lot of the music coming out of there. Courtney Barnett and a band I love, Camp Cope, they're from Australia. Courtney Barnett is from New Zealand. They have
Mad
this...
Cat Empire.
What?
Mad Cat Empire.
Oh,
You've ever heard them?
No, I don't know them.
And I mean, obviously, Flight of the Conchords also.
They have this real, like, dark, sarcastic view on the world, where like everything is like the irony is like turned up to 11, and it's just so, I don't know, like they're looking at the world from a completely different space where everything is actually just really darkly hilarious if you think about it differently. Like it's really cool. That's what the drop bear reminds me of. Like, that's just such a fucking Australian thing to come up with, and I love it because of that. That's exactly what I would imagine any of my Australian friends telling me when I go over there. Like, yeah, you gotta watch out for the drop bear. They'll get you.
It just seems like a lot of messing with people.
Yeah.
Well,
And it,
okay.
it spreads like wildfire. Or chlamydia.
Yeah, that's another thing.
Wildfire, the chlamydia of the crotch. Oh, I got that backwards, but that was it.
That's it.
But, well, I mean, to go off of that, it's obviously, like, what was I gonna say? It's definitely just, it is to troll people. One of the other ways to deter them is by urinating on yourself.
Oh, God.
And only speaking English in an Australian accent.
Oh, wow.
So it's just like, it's ridiculous.
It's almost xenophobic.
A little bit, yeah.
The only way to get rid of them is to be one of us.
There you go.
And there's an artist depiction of it on the page that I am looking at. It's basically just a koala with horrifying giant fangs.
Yeah, I googled it, and it's basically like a koala, except if you shaved it and made it really angry.
It's a koala with
Which
mange.
would make it angry.
Yeah, probably would.
I'm sure it comes from somewhere though, like beyond the trolling people and stuff. I'm sure there are koalas that can koalas contract mange. I don't know, but something similar, where they go kind of psychotic and rabies or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, I remember. I don't know if it's true. I'm not an animal specialist, but aren't koalas typically kind of not aggressive, but
they're dicks.
yeah. But then, like, by eating that eucalyptus, they're, like, basically high and calm all the time, but when they're not, they might freak out and scratch your face or something like that.
I think that's withdrawal.
You know what? That would make a lot of sense. But, I don't know.
You take in stimulants every day.
Yeah.
And then you don't have them, and then you become a raging chlamydic koala.
Eucalyptaholic, yeah.
Yeah. Eucalyptaholic.
Eucalyptaholic.
There you go.
So, shall I go next?
You shall.
I shall seize this opportunity to. Mine is like a kind of a tale.
Carpe topic.
It's mine. You know, when I used to listen to this back in the day, I always thought that there was a lesson or a moral in it, and revisiting it today, I'm not so sure that there is, but it's still really interesting in a weird. You may remember I spoke about Oisin and Tiernan Og the last time. So this story is about his father, and it's
Daddy Og.
Yeah. It's similar that it's got like a weird tragic slant to it, and I'm noticing this in a lot of the Celtic myths, and I really dig it because I love me a little bit of tragedy. So this is about a man called Fionn McCool, and it's not C-O-O-L.
We have a bar here called Fionn McCool's.
No way.
Yeah.
It's a chain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. You can never go fucking anywhere without there being an Irish bar called something like that. So that's great. Yeah, so I assume you still don't know anything about him despite having the bar, right?
No.
I just thought that was a person.
The toilet was disconnected from the floor, and you could shove it around a bit.
Interestingly, the same thing happens here. Not really. So,
an old toilet smith.
This I'm gonna in two separate. I'm gonna cut this like halfway through, and we're gonna move on, and then I'll come back to my last story at the end, right? We'll talk a little bit about Fionn McCool and who he is. He's one of the like all-time like greatest people in Irish history, and by history I of course mean fiction. So when he was a young boy, probably 7 or 8, he was sent to live with a man called Finnegas or Phinesis. I'm going to call him Finnegas because I already have a man named Fionn McCool, and I think Finnegas is...
I'm going to call him FN2187.
Fuck. You know, Finn is actually an Irish name, and it's derived from Fionn. So, that's, yeah. So, Finnegas was a poet who lived on the banks of the River Boyne, which is a river that goes through the county Meath, although I think this story actually takes place in Kildare, I'm not too sure. But Finnegas was renowned throughout the entire country for his vast knowledge. He had lots of stories that had lots of morals to them, and he lived his life by a certain moral code based on all these stories that he had in his head. He was a super interesting guy, and Fionn would help him with the cooking and cleaning and all of that stuff, and in exchange for that, Finnegas would impart all of his wisdom upon Fionn, tell him lots of stories and teach him lots of moral lessons. Sometimes Fionn, whose thirst for knowledge, it has to be said, is completely limitless, and he would ask him all sorts of questions, and Finnegas was like, I don't fucking know, like, because of this, now shut up and cook me food. So one day Fionn was like, is there a way to know everything? Because Finnegas kept saying, I don't know everything, and Fionn was like, but what if you did? What if anyone did? Could we know everything? So Finnegas once asked that exact same question. I really don't fucking know why they're not father and son. It would make the story so much better. His name is Finnegas. It sounds like Fionn, but Fionn's father is actually named Cool, and that's why he's Fionn MacCool, because M-A-C means son, so he's Fionn, the son of Cool. Anyway, Finnegas once asked the exact same question when he was younger. He was like, can you learn everything? And that was the reason that he actually chose to live so close to the River Boyne, because an ancient story told by druids of old said that in a still dark pool of the overhanging hazel trees lay the salmon of knowledge, and the salmon acquired its knowledge from eating 9 hazelnuts from the 9 hazel trees, and it acquired all of the knowledge in the world. And according to this ancient myth, whoever ate the salmon would gain its knowledge for themselves. So Finnegas was there to catch that very salmon, because he was already renowned for his wisdom and he wanted to step up his game a little bit. So one day they were fishing, trying to catch this salmon, which I think was named Finton, so everyone's got like an F-I at the start of their name. Anyway, Finnegas caught the salmon, and it was really large. He held it in both of his arms, and Fionn was like really excited, and he was like, you have to cook it right now and eat it right now. And he started setting up a fire, and Finnegas was like, I'm going to get more wood for the fire. You can cook this salmon, but don't you fucking dare eat it. And so he went off to get firewood. Fionn burned himself on a little drop of fish fat that dropped off the fire. It landed on his thumb, and he sucked his thumb to lessen the pain. And that basically transferred all of the knowledge in the world to Fionn. And Finnegas came back with his firewood, and he noticed that Fionn had like a real spring in his step and a spark in his eye, and he was like, have you eaten that fish? And Fionn was like, no, I didn't. I did burn myself and then suck my thumb. And Finnegas was like, no! He dropped all the firewood and felt a hole in his heart and said, the prophecy has been foretold. Except he didn't say that. They don't say that in Irish mythology. But yeah, he was like, now you are the one that has all of the knowledge, and you must use all of this knowledge and become as renowned as me for your wisdom. You must share this knowledge. And yeah, that's the end of the story. Yes?
Question. If he then had beaten Fionn over the head with a log and eaten Fionn, would he have gained that knowledge?
It's a good question. I'm gonna say no.
He didn't even have to eat him, really. He just had to cook him a little so that the fat would drip, and then burn his own finger, because he apparently didn't have to eat the salmon. Which begs the question, did the salmon have to die in the first place?
Yeah, you had to consume the flesh of the salmon. that's what it actually said. I assume.
But he didn't consume the flesh.
Yeah, no, but I assume that what happened is that while it was cooking, like it all the I don't know, the
knowledge rendered into the fat, which dripped.
Something to that effect. That's what I reckon happened. Yeah, it had to go through the process of cooking, or else you had to eat the flesh. But it's really weird that it happened with the. There are different iterations of the story, though. Sometimes they say that what happened was that Fionn he burned himself and then he sucked his thumb, and then when they came back, Finnegas started eating the salmon, and he noticed that he was getting no smarter, and he just sort of naturally realized that Fionn was the one who actually had to get it. It's a story about like the passing of the torch, and Finnegas handing over his reputation to Fionn and like stepping down so that he can step up. It's that kind of thing that sometimes you just have to let go over to someone else. So I think he just has this sudden realization that it should have been Fionn the whole time, and that he shouldn't have been like this is already a man who is renowned for his knowledge, and therefore for him to actually want to acquire more when there is someone much younger than him and infinitely more curious than him. I think that's the whole idea behind it, but it's actually really hard to decipher the moral from it when you're 27 years old and you read it. But it's I don't know, there's something about it, like the fact that Finnegas' whole reputation was based around this one thing, and even though you're well renowned for being so incredibly intelligent, you still want more, and then you find out that someone else is going to get it, and they're younger than you, and they automatically become way smarter than you, and it's sad, you know.
Damn millennials.
Yeah. Yeah. Fionn took his AirPods out and said, "What you say? Hell yeah, I ate that motherfucker."
He sucked upon his thumb and became woke.
Yeah. But, yeah, what do you think of that story as people who have no sense of Celtic mythology and, you know, wouldn't be...
Well, you're assuming an awful lot there.
That's true. I know that you know about Oisin and Tír na Nog. I know that for a fact. So.
And the Selkies.
And the Selkies, yeah, of course.
Those sexy Selkies.
Yeah.
No, I know some things from Celtic mythology. Like I would, we had, no, we had a show that, what the hell was it called? I don't remember what it was called, but I've been exposed to different stories from Celtic mythology over time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't recall them verbatim, like off the top of my head, but
yeah.
like I'm aware of them. But I mean, it doesn't. The thing about Celtic mythology that I always appreciate is the poetics of it.
Yeah.
So it like that idea of the passing the torch and the symbolism of the salmon. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's particularly weird or out of place. I mean, my weirdness with it comes more from like, why a salmon? You know? And the criticisms.
Delicious.
Well, see, and knowledge is delicious. Is that the metaphor?
Well,
no, but like, for me, it's more like the questions that I had, those little things that like maybe are a lack of understanding on my part, but the plot holes for better, you know, like what happens, or like the what if questions, you know, like what if, you know, that he committed an act of cannibalism and ate Fionn, like would he gain that knowledge?
I'd say not, because Fionn died and was famously buried in like a really large tomb, and I think if there was any thought that the knowledge was therefore transferable once again, I think they would have probably done something with his corpse, but they didn't. So I'm assuming that it's not like quite like that. As for it being salmon, like I don't know, maybe salmon was like a delicacy at the time, because famously the only thing that the Irish ever ate were potatoes, which is why the potato famine was so horrible. Or rather, the only food that the Irish ever had direct control over was potatoes. So
Potatoes not native to Ireland, though.
No, Sir Walter Raleigh actually brought the potato to Ireland when he came back from the United States. You're right. maybe that makes salmon an even bigger delicacy. I'm not sure.
Or maybe salmon were the potato before the potato. The pre-tato.
Potato is the new salmon?
Yeah. Well, they replaced salmon with potato because they were like, we're sick of this knowledgeable fish. Please give us something bland and starchy.
We're tired of all this knowledge.
It would explain the drinking.
Yeah.
No, but I just find it more interesting of, okay, so the salmon got the knowledge from eating the, sorry, what kind of nut was it?
Hazelnuts.
Hazelnut. From eating the hazelnuts. So if this is known, because obviously they had to know this to know where the salmon would be, why didn't they just eat a hazelnut from each tree?
Yeah, it's one of the things about, especially in the internet era, they don't seem to be as well documented as they used to be. Like, I used to have cassette tapes about these myths, and each one was like 30 minutes long, and they really fleshed out the stories. It was really, really good to listen to. There's a Wikipedia page for the Salmon of Knowledge, and it's incredibly thin. It's like 6 sentences, and it really doesn't do anything to...
It's disappointing for something called the Salmon of Knowledge.
I know, and it's like... Yeah, I read it, and I actually like feel something from the... Like, it's such a like an innocent thing that Fionn just happened to stumble upon all the knowledge in the world, and Finnegas had to do so much there to like accept that and be happy for Fionn and not be angry and stuff. Like, I think that there's a huge lesson to be learned there.
Well, that's the real point. Like, I'm being hypercritical for the yucks, but I think
no, but you
that's
are right
obviously
in the sense that like the telling of it doesn't seem to actually push that idea true. You have to sort of find that yourself, and that used to not always be the case, but I had to basically find what was on the internet instead of those old cassette tapes, which I'd love to listen to, but I don't have them anymore or the means to play them. So
well, and because a lot of those stories come from an oral tradition, they change from person to person who tells them and from version to version. But I mean, it's interesting too. Like, I mean, salmon, is this a special type of salmon or is it a regular salmon? Because salmon's lifespan, not terribly long. So where did this legend of the salmon, did they just learn? Like, a farmer saw the salmon eat the hazelnuts and was like, hey, I think that salmon might know some shit. Yeah. You better get here quick and eat the salmon, because that's the only way to get that sweet knowledge.
It could very well just be that, like, that it's such a weird behavior. I know
was the salmon able to communicate that it knew the knowledge? Like,
well, it was ancient.
How did they know they got the right salmon?
Well, because the druids were the ones who told the story, so it could be anything. When druids are involved, you know, that's all I'm going to say. Yeah. So.
A wonderful story, El.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I'm maybe a little bit disappointed that it ends on such a that's the ending kind of way, but yeah, I like it. I'm happy with it. So yeah.
The Salmon of Knowledge. You know, it reminds me, and I was thinking about this at the time. Is that why the Hitchhiker's Guide book that came, I think it's the one that wasn't written by Douglas Adams. It was called The Salmon of Doubt. Oh,
it is the one that's written by Douglas Adams.
That one was the posthumous release.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, The Salmon of Doubt.
That is what it references. Yeah, that's right.
Oh, excellent. Well, now I know more about that.
Yeah.
Now we know references. And if we go to that pub, we know why it's called that.
Everybody here calls it Finn McCool's. But now I correct them really obnoxiously.
That is another... People in Ireland also call him Finn McCool, and I don't know why. Like, Finn and Fionn are admittedly names that come from the one name, but Fionn is spelled F-I-O-N-N, and Finn is F-I-N-N. But
I think it's spelled Fionn
I think they say that in the advertisements. They say the proper pronunciation.
Really? Well, I bet everyone that works in there is probably not Irish.
Well, yeah.
Probably not. We also have Falches. which we're
Oh,
probably
falche,
pronouncing
yeah.
incorrectly.
Mm.
Is that the correct pronunciation?
It's just falche, not falche. But yeah.
Falche.
That means welcome in Gaelic.
Oh, there you go. Didn't know that either.
Yeah.
But people here want to make it sound fancier, so they say falche instead of falche.
Well, another
the
thing
basic
is
sound.
when people say sláinte before they take a drink, that means like be of good health. I hope that you all have good health, that kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
There was there's a Viking cheers. I think
It's this drink, I like it, and then you smash the glass and say another.
No, oh my gosh. What the hell was it? I don't know what language it's in. Stol?
Oh yeah, that is
Mm.
I think it's Norse, I think. Yeah.
Something. Somebody let us know in the comments or
Yeah.
on Twitter. Or don't, but please do.
Yeah, just do
I
it
like
as
throwing
one
the
thing.
or don't in there because then even if they don't, it's still like they were following the instructions.
Yeah.
That's engagement, right?
Yeah. It's podcasting is the most difficult thing to get engagements from, isn't it? It's like
Yeah.
It's an ordeal. We've been getting a lot more recently since we joined the Podfix network.
yeah.
Shout out to Shadow to Podfix. Shadow. But yeah, it is kind of complicated because you find like a lot of people listen, and then you put out a call to do something because you're like, oh, all these people are listening, and then they keep driving because they're listening while they're driving or something.
Yeah. When I used to do like video only stuff, if I asked people to comment, I would get like between, I don't know, like 40 to 80 comments depending on. And then since I started putting this on audio platforms as well, it's like 5 comments. And it's real like
Yeah.
it's like I think about it and I'm like, god damn, like they're listening but they don't care. And then I think about it myself and I'm like, when was the last time I ever fucking commented on a podcast? Like I've never once tweeted Sam Harris and said like, good job bro, totally agree with what you said. Like it's yeah.
It's probably like, oh, where's Elle at?
Yeah, I'm certain he has no idea who I am.
You never know.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's fun because especially sometimes you'll call for engagement and not get it, but then you'll get somebody correcting you on something you said 10 episodes ago.
Yeah.
We had that. I accidentally said something about the Axis and the Ally powers in
World War II.
World War II.
No, it was World War II. I think you were talking about. It doesn't matter. Anyway,
I got them. I got
anyway.
them mixed up because we were making fun of the Alita movie coming out, and I misspoke, and then I made a funny comment back to them, and they never responded. So
That's the worst.
yeah, I ran with the joke, but didn't get a comment back. If you're still listening, check your comments because I returned the comment after your
On
correction.
SoundCloud.
I thought it was funny. There you go. Anyway, Elle, how much do you know about mules?
Mules. Well.
Yeah.
Mules of the drug variety or different?
No. Of the animal variety.
I'll be honest with you. I don't think there is an animal I know less about than the mule. They're like some kind of weird fucking donkey thing, right? But they're like not a donkey. It's
like a donkey mixed with a horse.
I tell you this, up until about a year and a half ago, I thought a donkey was just a small horse. Or sorry, a baby horse. Turns out it's a completely different fucking animal, so yeah.
Well, we're always learning.
Yeah.
What would I tell you? What do you know about Brazil?
Oh, I know that it's the 3rd largest country in the world and has a population of 350 million. As well as that, their largest exports are football and the internet. No, I know some of those things may be correct.
Football, maybe.
Yeah.
So this mythology We're getting into mythical creatures here. Justine already started, but everything that we have after this is all a mythical creature.
That's good because my last one is based largely off of a mythical creature too, so that's good.
Excellent. Well, this one is the Headless Mule.
Oh, I love it.
Sounds promising.
Yeah.
Hey, by any chance, did its head end up on a fucking sheet in Wales? That would tie these together quite nicely.
That, I didn't think about that connection, but you're absolutely... I don't know what the Welsh-Brazilian connection is, but I'm sure it exists.
Dude, I'll tell you this. There are towns in Argentina where they speak fluent Welsh.
I mean, does anyone speak fluent Welsh?
There's a footballer called Gabriel Ainse who used to play left back or centre back for Argentina. He also played for Man United and I think PSG, and he speaks fluent Welsh.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Argentina has a lot of and Uruguay too. Actually, all in South America. There's random colonies of German or Dutch or mostly there's Dutch also. But I know in Argentina and Uruguay there's Dutch colonies and kind of German colonies where like all of the architecture, small towns, totally insular, where all of the architecture and the culture is all European.
Yeah.
And they speak Spanish, but they also mostly speak their native language. But yeah, so I don't know if there's a connection there that way in terms of the horse skulls. If some of those horse skulls are actually mule skulls, for example.
How would you tell? How would you even know the difference?
I'm not too familiar with the differences between horse skulls and mule skulls.
But why?
If we have a mule skull expert who can explain the differences in the comments, in the listeners, go for it. Would love to hear from you.
Mm-hmm.
That's really that is the level of fame you aspire for your podcast, isn't it? That you can say something as crazy as that, and there's someone listening that's like, oh, that's me.
Well, actually, the bottom teeth of the mule protrude slightly, and they have a shorter snout more often. That comes from the donkey side of these things might be true. I don't know.
That actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It sounds correct, certainly.
So anyway, it's literally called the Headless Mule, or in Portuguese, and this is a terrible attempt at Brazilian Portuguese, but mula sem cabeça. I think I pronounced that pretty right?
Yeah.
But yeah, mule without a head. So this is a character in Brazilian folklore. Apparently, it's usually the ghost of a woman that's been cursed by God for her sins.
Yeah, that sounds
as usual.
Yeah,
usually a prostitute, or for fornication with a priest inside of a church. That's the type of sin that gets you turned into a headless mule. Apparently,
but the priest. So a priest is allowed to fornicate as long as it's outside of a church.
No. Nothing happens to the priest. This all happens to the woman.
Okay.
So it's kind of like...
But what if she fornicates with the priest outside of the church?
I mean, there's still a chance that she could be mulified.
Yeah, it just depends how God's feeling that day.
Yeah.
Depends on his blood sugar
he's got
levels.
his finger on the button.
Yeah.
And just like, to mule or not to mule? That is the cabeza.
Classic
so,
God.
Said he.
He's always playing God.
So they're condemned into turning into a fire-spewing headless mule. So that's the other part of this. It's not just like a mule without a head. There's like fire jutting out of its neck.
That doesn't sound too bad.
Alternatively, there is a floating, flaming skull above where the head should be.
Oh.
Yeah.
I think I know
Ghost
what happened
Rider.
to it.
Basically Ghost Rider, but a mule. And it'll gallop through the countryside from Thursday's sundown to Friday's sunrise. It is a very specific schedule.
It's the exact day that Jeffrey is out of town. At the end of every month when this thing arrives, Jeffrey's always out of town. Really weird.
So the myth has a bunch of different variations, of course. especially concerning like the type of sin that turned the woman into the monster. Some of those can include necrophagy, infanticide, sacrilege against the church, fornication, and as mentioned before, fornication with a priest inside of a church.
It's funny. The Catholic Church is like, yeah, anything like killing kids, having sex with corpses, or having sex outside of marriage. Those are three things that are the same.
The punishment really suits the crime, but the thing too is that it's specifically women, right? Like, from the information that I've been able to uncover, it doesn't say anything about this happening to men.
Nothing happens to the priest in that scenario.
Exactly, like nothing happens to the priest. So here's a little bit more on the appearance. The mule's appearance varies greatly from region to region. Its color is most commonly given as brown, sometimes as black. It has silver or iron horseshoes that produce a hideous trotting, louder than any horse is capable of producing.
What is a hideous trotting sound like, as opposed to a regular one?
I'm just going with what Wikipedia says.
Is there like screams intermittent between the trotting sounds?
Yeah, it shouts swear words while it does it.
Not trotting, it's hideous. The foreboding trot. Despite being headless, the mule still neighs, usually very loudly. It's just very loud. And sometimes it moans like a crying woman. It also has a bridle tied to its non-existing mouth and spews fire through its non-existing nostrils. I don't know how you know whether it's its nostrils or not.
So its face is on fire, really.
Or in some version it comes straight from the severed neck. So there's pictures of this thing.
Could I just say something?
Mm-hmm.
When this happens to it doesn't happen to a mule, but this type of mule really elevates the mule. Like, it makes it way cooler than a horse. Like, I mean? Like, they're kind of seen as, like, these dumpy undulate kind of things. Like, nobody likes mules that much. I mean, they're cute, but
so not, what you're saying is this story was probably invented by a mule. Brand awareness.
Pimp my mule. Like,
hey, we heard you like mules, so we cut off your mule's head and replaced it with fire so you can mule while you mule.
It carries around an electric guitar. Yeah.
Hey, mules are cool. Mules, we got this one mule, and he's got no head, man, and it's just fire spewing out. And he did it with a priest in a church. That's how badass he is.
Off the chain.
Hey, you know what?
Off the cart.
My favorite Tom Waits album is called Mule Variations, and now I actually know that there are mule variations, and this is a good variation of the mule.
There you go. So, according to most reports, the mule is condemned to gallop over the territory of 7 parishes each night. It's kind of
do that anyway.
There's also apparently a Brazilian version of the werewolf that does the same thing. By some accounts, its trip begins and ends at the parish where its sin was committed. Transformation usually occurs at a crossroads for some reason. Depending on the source, the headless mule may have a placeholder head, a mane, made of fire that spews. Fire that it spews. To which a red-hot iron bridle is tied. That's kind of awesome, actually.
Yeah, it's really cool.
The curse cannot be transmitted because it is acquired as a result of a sin committed willfully by the accursed woman. Yep. It can be reversed temporarily by spilling the mule's own blood with the prick of a needle or by tying her to a cross. In the first case, just because.
Yeah, good.
It's not really clear on whether the woman comes back headless as a case, or that'd be an interesting transformation to see in film form, just like a woman's head popping out of this mule's neck. So, the woman will remain in human form until the sun dawns, but will transform again next time.
next time.
Yeah, I mean, this is basically the thing. There's going back to the priests. There's also the headless priest. There's also a similar folktale where the curse fell on the sinning priest. You know, and in this story, the priest's headless ghost rides through the night on a normal horse, much like the headless horseman. So actually less cool.
I'd say that's a letdown.
You know, like, this actually makes the headless horseman seem kind of like
I was
shitty.
just say it reminds me of Sleepy Hollow.
Yeah. It's definitely another one of these ones that's rooted in the Catholic fear of God, and it's like, don't do all of these things, or this list of endless nightmares will happen to you. And someone is clearly making it up as they go along, and that's why it changes from town to town with like different variations and stuff. But I never actually get tired of listening to those types of stories. We spoke about one, I think, in maybe it was the Christmas episode we did, and I can't remember the specifics, but it was kind of like another proto-werewolf story, I think.
Oh, the Loup-Garou? Loup-Garou.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And it had all those weird things attached to it, or becoming one, or something. Like,
Yeah,
they're really
yeah.
like ridiculous, but I can't remember what they were now.
It's worth going back and
Yeah.
listening to that episode. It was like the second myth, I think.
Yeah. So it's like it's very cool how human fear takes the form of these ridiculous stories that are designed to like correct misbehavings in society.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's not even just that. Just the kind of people turning into animals is always considered to be like a sign that they aren't a good person, or they did something. So like Beauty and the Beast, you think about like why the curse was put on him and stuff. So like beastly appearances or visages are attributed to people who aren't necessarily good people. And so like with werewolves and all of it, it's intended. It all comes from that kind of those types of cultures that
Morality.
Exactly, yeah, like kind of like moral stories and things like that. But I know. Did you have anything else to add about this one?
Do you guys listen to Jordan Peterson or know who he is?
Jordan Peterson.
Oh, the prof from University of Toronto.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, unfortunately.
He would say that this story is true, and when you asked him to qualify that, he would say, I'm wondering, should I do my impression of him, or should I save that for another time? He would say that it's just a true story because these myths keep on coming up in different variations throughout history, and that makes them true because from an evolutionary standpoint, they are useful for human survival because everything ties into different personality traits and archetypal things that people have about them and stuff. So yeah, I thought I would throw that in there and let the listeners decide whether or not that's a dig or if it's me giving my approval to him. So there.
I did have another myth to tack on to this one just a little bit, just because they're completely unrelated, but they're also completely related.
Okay.
This is just a quick one. This is just a throw out there.
Okay.
But this comes from Chinese mythology. There's a divine bird, and I'm going to mispronounce the name. I'm sorry. I believe it's known as Jiang. I tried. So basically, this imagine a potato.
Done.
Okay. Now the potato is covered in feathers, and it's big. Okay. Now the potato has 6 legs.
Sounds like you've got blight
coming out of it. But unlike a potato, there's no eyes. So it's just this blob with 6 legs, and it's kind of fat and chubby, and it's got 4 wings coming out of it. Are you picturing this?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's hard for me to picture a potato without eyes, but I'm slowly getting there.
So and it's red. Yeah. and it has no facial features of any kind. It has no head, no facial features. So it's just kind of like this potato-shaped body. It's quite large, 6 beastly legs and 4 wings.
It's a golden snitch with legs.
I mean, and
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I would say so.
And very ugly.
it feels like the forgotten cousin of the
Discount
golden
snitch.
like we might call it the bronze snotch.
It's the baby that the golden snitch had with a regular football. It's the crossbreeding experiment left over.
And a rooster. Yeah. So this creature lives in a perpetual state of confusion, obviously.
Well, yeah. Looks like it would.
But it's also fond of singing and dancing.
Oh.
So somehow it sings. Well, it says it's fond of it. It doesn't say that it does sing.
It likes to hear it, maybe.
Maybe. But
Like
through
it's-
what? It doesn't have ears.
It's
How does it
magical.
feel
Doesn't
to-
matter.
I mean, that's a good point. Yeah. So this is the creature. And it has that's that's the story.
Yeah.
I just wanted to tell you about this potato bird, Al.
I would pay money to hear Jordan Peterson talk about how that's fucking true evolutionarily.
I'm going to send you pictures of this one too, but I'm going to pass the mic off to Justine so that she can tell you about some interesting creature.
Cool.
Some interesting creature. Okay, so far from being a badass fire mule thing, I found this one because I thought it was really funny, but also kind of like it makes sense that at least it's derived from things that exist. So we go to Japan, and there is this creature called the Itan Momen, which what does that sound like to you?
Eton Momen.
Just if you could guess.
I cannot get Elon Musk's face out of my head. It's either that or a Star Wars character.
I just
Oh
have
yeah, yeah.
Ital pasta.
Itan.
This is the thing that we have here.
I'm gonna go with a monk.
All right, Santiago.
I'm going to say a famous soccer player.
All right. Well, actually, no. It's both of these things. It's everything and nothing. So it's the sentient roll of cotton that smothers people until they suffocate and die.
I love Japan.
I know. And that's more or less what it is. It's this thing. It's a type of. I hope I'm reading this correctly. It's called a suku mogami, which is basically tools that are. I guess they're in Japanese folklore, and they acquire a spirit over the course of 100 years or after 100 years. Like, I guess I consider it a way of saying it's sort of possessed, or it has it starts to get a soul. But why this one murders people, I don't know. There isn't any information about it. And why it's a piece of cotton, I also don't know, but...
The image we have looks like a toilet paper roll, I'm not gonna lie.
And it's kind of making this, face, if you could call it a face. It has eyebrows. But it looks kind of, ambivalent, or it's just kind of yeah, I am what I am.
I've made peace with that.
It's not even a roll of cotton, it looks like a piece of paper, yeah. But that's all it says about it. And I thought that was kind of interesting that they actually have folklore tied to inanimate objects that I assume can either be good or evil.
They have a lot of that in Japan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tried looking up some Japanese folklore for the episode we recorded on your podcast, and they were all just like that. Like, this is a lampshade that comes to life and strangles you. And that's just what it does. There's a lot of stuff
Don't
like that. They're really good at like horror and stuff like that in Japan, and they're even better at things like metaphor and I don't know. They have like their stories and things like that in Japan tend to have this really really deep meaning that's like so nuanced that you can't even liken it to anything from the West. Like it's super interesting, and that's definitely not the case with this weird cotton roll thing. But still, unless it does have some kind of significance, other than that it kills people. Does it kill bad people, or just...
It doesn't specify, it just says that it flies through the air at night.
Oh, of course.
And attacks humans, often by wrapping around their faces and smothering them. It's very simplistic, very, it's very clean, it's a very clean myth. It hasn't been tainted by anything. Apparently appears in anime a lot. So, I mean, take that as you will.
There you go. Oh, Power Rangers Ninja Steel.
But really? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I mean, if that's not a place to learn about Japanese culture in an accurate and, informative way, then I don't know what you call educational television.
Yeah, the Power Rangers are evolutionarily true as well.
Yes, of course, yeah, absolutely. To question that would be to question our own reality, which is dumb.
So shall I end the episode with my story?
Yeah. Do you want to hear another quick two that I found?
Yeah.
So this one's called the Squonk.
Of course it fucking is.
And it's from Pennsylvania, from the hemlock forests.
The Transylvania of America.
It's one of the Vanias.
It's definitely one of the Vanias, yeah.
Metroidvania.
It's in that Vania.
Nice.
Nicely done. Yes. So this is a, it's kind of just like a sad, wrinkly pig. So imagine a pig with like skin that's too big for it, and it's all wrinkly and gross and saggy. And it's wild and it's hideous. Okay, this I can't stress enough how ugly this thing is. That's an essential part of the story. It definitely has a good name, the Squonk. But yes, the Squonk is so put off by its own appearance. It's so ashamed of its own appearance that it's constantly weeping. So like it's just crying constantly because it's so ugly.
That's so sad.
And the thing is that its magical power is that when people try to capture it, it bursts into tears. Like literally its entire body bursts into a puddle of tears.
Oh,
wow.
And this one guy, he apparently captured one once, and he was taking it in a sack to show everybody. It was J.P. Wentling. He coaxed one into a bag.
The J.P. stands for Jordan Peterson.
And then he was carrying it home, and suddenly the sack lightened, and when he looked inside, all that remained was a pool of tears from where the Squonk had been. So it's just a sad, ugly pig.
This is definitely the traditional snake oil salesman. Oh, I captured it, but wouldn't you know, it's turned into a bunch of tears.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk about a shitty power.
Yeah.
It just reminds me of that guy from, was it X2? Where the senator gets turned into water. Like Magneto has a machine for... No, that's X-Men 1, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. And then he bursts into water because he's been turned into a crappy mutant.
Yeah, that's a great movie.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't hold up with current superhero films,
No,
but
no.
X2 is pretty good, and
Yeah.
X-Men 1 was kind of one of the ones that started everything.
And
Talking about
X-Men
modern mythology.
Days of Ellen Page is a fantastic movie too.
Days of Ellen Page, yes,
Yeah.
yes. As it will now forever be called.
Yes, that's what I call it. She's my favorite.
She's earned that.
Yeah, definitely.
The other one that I had is actually just kind of badass, so I had to talk about it because it's just so damn cool. But this is from Danish folklore. Have you ever marriage brings us together? Have you ever heard of a Valraven?
A Valraven, yeah. I don't think
So-
I think I might have a friend on my Steam friends list called Valraven.
Well, now you'll know what it means, because they're freaking awesome. So according to Danish folklore from the late 1800s, when a king or a chieftain was killed in battle and not found and buried, ravens came and ate him. The ravens that ate the body of the slain king on the battlefield became Valraven. The Valraven that ate the king's heart gained human knowledge and could perform great miraculous acts, could lead people astray, and had superhuman powers that were basically just terrible and could really mess with people. Ravens already known for being quite clever. This raven has human knowledge. In another account, the Valraven is described as a peaceless soul in search of redemption that flies by night but never by day, and can only free itself from its animal countenance by consuming the blood of a child.
Ah, of course.
Yeah, and then there's like all sorts of songs and stuff. But they also sometimes known for being able to change forms. So eating the bodies of the dead on the battlefield. Sometimes it doesn't have to be a king; just depends on which version of the myth. They can turn into the form of a knight after eating the entire heart of a child. And alternately, they can turn into half wolf, half raven creatures that stalk the night.
Wow.
But
That,
I just thought this sounded kind of badass.
Yeah, that reminds me a lot of the movie The Crow, where it's like the crow is just doomed to like rule the earth, or not roam the earth, until he finally gets retribution or vengeance, and like it's sort of tragic and poetic at the same time, like that kind of thing.
So if somebody asks now, what is the opposite of a squonk? You can reply, a Valraven.
You know, that original thing, the first word that you said, is that word itself is so fucking ugly that I don't think I can ever bring myself to say it out loud. It's just an aesthetically horrifying word.
It
Is it related at all to Squanchy from Rick and Morty?
No, because Squanchy is a cat.
I guess so,
Creature.
but like, I don't know. It seems really... It's kind of an odd-looking cat.
Mm. Did you have one last one before we go back to L?
Yeah, sorry, no. See what I just did?
Did
Yeah, go on.
you have one?
Oh, well, there was one. I don't know if I should do it, but it's more like sad, but it's about this, you probably heard of it. It's called the New Jersey Devil. There is a team named after it, too, from New Jersey. And basically, it's this legendary creature that was said to inhabit this place called the Pine Barrens of southern New Jersey. And it's described as being a flying biped with hooves. But there are many variations, so just kind of... It's pretty weird looking. Could also have head of a donkey, I guess, or mule. It's kangaroo-like. And it has the head of a goat, and leathery bat-like wings, horns, small arms with clawed hands, cloven hooves, and a forked tail. And apparently it moves really quickly and makes hideous, blood-curdling, screaming sounds. And they say that I guess the myth surrounding it is that there was this family they were the Lwyds, and they believe that the mother who already had, I think it was 12 children, was pregnant with the 13th. And she was pissed about this. And supposedly she cursed the child and said that it was the devil because I guess she didn't want it. And they say that when it was born, this thing came out like screaming, and it came out as like a baby, but then it transformed into this creature and scurried up the chimney and ran away, and then basically terrorized the community for the rest of time.
Nice.
Yeah. It's kind of sad. Like, I don't know if it's...
Yeah, the Jersey Devil is... It gets talked about a lot. There's so many variations on the myth. But what's interesting is the Leeds family is supposed to be... There is an actual Leeds family, and there is an actual house where this supposedly happened. So people go and try to find... It's all in I think it's all in ruins, but you can find the foundations of the house, I think, in the forest. And that was where the Leeds family lived and where the legend originated.
Huh. There's a song about the Jersey Devil by an American singer-songwriter named Bruce Springsteen.
Of course.
Yeah.
Never heard of him.
Yeah. It's called A Night with the Jersey Devil, and he actually describes it in like some detail. So that was my... I thought it was going to be that, and then now I'm surprised to learn that he didn't just make that up himself, so that's cool.
That'd be a weird thing to make up for a song.
Yeah.
By him, anyway. He doesn't seem like that kind of person.
I don't know, you should check out his first two albums. They're very, very, like, full of words and poetry, and they're very out there. They're not like... You wouldn't listen to them and be like, this is the guy who sang Born in the USA. But
yeah, that's all I think of when I think of Bruce.
Yeah, I've seen him live 7 times in 4 different countries. So
oh my god,
no, not 7 times. I've seen him like 9 times now. Yeah, he's one of my faves. So
so you already knew about this thing?
Yeah, but I didn't know that it was actually real. I thought it was just one of those weird fucking things that he does every now and then. But he did release it on Halloween, so that's another thing. I thought
that
it
makes
was
a lot
just
of
like,
sense.
yeah, but yeah, it is. It's pretty weird and definitely true as well. That's the most interesting thing about it. So, shall I close us out?
Sure.
So the final thing that I have to talk... I don't have a lot on this, really. I used to have a cassette tape that told this story in just really beautiful detail. But there was this sort of... So, like banshees. This is sort of like a banshee, but it's actually not. It's a thing called... I don't know if it's called Aillen. It's spelled like Aillen, but I think there's actually supposed to be an accent over the E, which would make it Aillen, something along those lines. But this is like a huge fire-breathing fairy type thing that used to terrorize towns in Ireland. It used to come to different places across the country. I think it came up against Fionn in the Hill of Tara, which was like the site where the King of Ireland would reign from, the High King at the time. And the Elaine, I'll just call it Elaine, would arrive and play an Irish harp. And she was so talented with the harp that everybody who listened to her would fall asleep straight away because it was such sweet music, and people would just be like, oh, that's lovely, and then they'd nod off. And then when they were asleep, she would breathe fire through their towns and raise all of their buildings and kill all of the people. No one could ever fight her because she would send them to sleep with the sound of her harp. So up stepped Fionn McCool, the last by this point he had led a group of knights called the Fionn, which are referenced in Oisin and Tír na nÓg. The Fionn, I think, spawned from I think originally it was the Red Branch Knights and then the Fionn, and the Fionn are basically like the greatest gang of warriors that ever existed in Ireland. So Fionn McCool went up against Aillen or whatever I've decided to call her, and he heard the music creep in, and he started to drift off. And then what he did was he got his spear and he stuck it into the grass on the hills of Tara. And every time he would feel himself nod off, he would fall on the spear, and it would sort of a pinprick on his head, and that would wake him up again. And that's what he did to stay awake, was basically kept on irritating himself to the point of staying awake. And then
stabbing himself in the forehead with a spear.
Yeah, he's a Celtic warrior, and that's what we do. So yeah, that's pretty much what he did. And eventually he used his shield to deflect the fire that she breathed at him, and when she let her guard down while she was, I don't know, refueling the fire or whatever, he threw the spear at her, and that killed her. There are different variations that say that there was poison on the tip of the spear, and the poison was the only thing that could kill her. I don't know, I prefer the idea that he used the spear to keep himself awake, because in the poison one, the spell kept him awake from the spear, and that's just not as... It doesn't really tap into his ingenuity as a warrior, like that he thought to do something that no one else thought to do. So that's it. If you Google Aillen and then type in Fionn after, you can see pictures of her, and she is one scary looking motherfucker. Like, she's, I don't know, 20 feet tall, breathes fire, and plays the harp like nothing you've ever heard. So that's it. And Fionn used his creativity to defeat her and save Ireland and rid her from the land, so that everyone could continue raising their crops and, you know, having a good time. So there you have it.